we're already 5 minutes in, aren't we? So I think we should start. And if people come, dial in later on, we can record that, can't we? So what I've just heard from agenda item 1 is that we have no formal apologies this evening. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Right. 2, declarations of intentions this evening.
No.
In that case, let's progress to item 3, which at the previous meeting as circulated. I have no quarrel with them. I don't know. Councillor Williams.
I think Councillor Jones may have a declaration of interest.
All right. Councillor Jones, let me unmute you.
Thank you. Just to declare minor interest under item 5, I work for KEELE University, but I gain no benefit of the application in any way.
Thanks, Councillor. I think you're fine on that particular application, but yes, it's hell to do that. Any further declarations of interest?
No.
Nope.
Right.
No.
Right, then are members of the previous record are a correct record?
Yeah.
Yes. Happy to move them.
Have a seconder for that?
A second.
I look across, there's no one frowning, so I'm going to take those as accepted. Now that brings us to item 4, the application for major development at Pithead Close. I believe we have a speaker on this item, is that correct?
Yes, we do.
Hello.
Do you, Mrs. Mulder, know anything to say prior as supplementary information? Because obviously we need the speaker to be aware of that if there's any further updates to be given.
I will hand over to Nick. Nick Bromley's dealing with this item. We have published 2 supplementaries. There's nothing further to add. Is that correct, Nick?
Yes, that's correct. The second supplementary was published earlier today.
Okay, so if I could then ask that our speaker be let into the meeting to address us.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can. Is that Mr. Nedding?
It is, yes, yes.
Okay.
It is.
Are you familiar with the rules for this? Perhaps I should just go through them for correct form. So,
thank you.
You have 5 minutes to address the committee. After 4 of those minutes have elapsed, you will be given a verbal warning by our clerk. And when they're finished, that's the sum total of your contribution to the proceedings this evening. So on those terms, I invite you to address the committee beginning whenever you feel comfortable.
Many thanks, Chair. My name's Owen Nedding from Lichfields, and we're the planning agents for the application. Firstly, I would just like to express my thanks on behalf of the applicant to your planning department, statutory consultees and you as members for maintaining progress despite the significant challenges. We're actually working with many local authorities across the UK, and there's very few that in late May are actually holding their second planning committee under lockdown. As a result, this application and the others around it have not faced any sort of delay in determination, and we are very grateful for you for this. As you're aware, the application before you is recommended for approval by officers, and there's no objectors this evening, and the applicant has engaged with neighbouring residents, resulting actually in a larger number of comments in support for the proposals. The officer's report neatly summarises the proposals that are the result of 12 months work, including 2 rounds of detailed pre-application advice with officers and 1 with your strategic planning consultative group. Given this, I will only sort of provide a brief summary now of the key matters, and hopefully well within 5 minutes. The former use at Lyme Road has ceased. It ceased last year before this application was submitted, and whilst that was a disappointment to some, the previous operations were not financially viable. and the decision was made to sell the site. The previous core speedway use had to be supplemented by many other operations, a number without planning permission, in order for the operators to make any money. And this was against a backdrop of a very low rental. It simply wasn't sustainable. The reports submitted to support the planning application using Sport England data show the area does not have a high demand for motorsports, which was also evidenced by the low uptake when operational. That alternative provisions exist within a reasonable drive. And in terms of general sport provision, the area is actually very well served. Alternatively, the replacement use, either warehouse, light or general industrial, will complement the surrounding business park location and is estimated to provide a minimum of 400 new jobs, with alternative potential layouts and mix of uses capable of accommodating the region of 550 new jobs. The proposals will reduce the impact on local residents' amenity on matters such as noise and transport disruption when you compare it to the previous use. And by rerouting access through Pithead Close, all vehicular traffic, aside from emergencies, will be removed from Luma Road. The scheme will also open up a new and improved cycle and pedestrian link between Luma Road and the existing pedestrian path. It's an outline application, as you know, and as such, detailed design, layout and landscaping matters will all be brought back to the council for approval in due course. Today's decision is about establishing the principle of the change of land use and the access provision, both of which are deemed acceptable by your officers. We note the late reps by the Coal Authority who do not object to the scheme. The response is as we would expect at this stage, with further intrusive investigation and assessment required to determine the developable layout and method of construction. Further assessment has already been sent to the Coal Authority to begin this dialogue. The scheme will optimise the use of a brownfield site, replacing an underutilised and unviable operation with a significant job-generating use in a suitable and sustainable location. And as such, we respectfully request that members resolve to grant planning permission this evening. That's it from me, although I'm happy to take any questions if you have them. Thank you.
I'm afraid you can't field questions
Okay.
on the protocol, Mr. Nedin, but thank you very much for your contribution.
No.
Before we debate this matter, I'll just ask our officer if he's got any comments to make on what he's heard from our presenter.
No further comments, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In that case, leeway, but if crowds are not good and this does bring jobs, you can see both sides of that argument. I invite comment from members.
I think broadly I'm in favour of this application. For me, just clarification really on 4.6 about gender, where they're talking about the materials for the roof. I'm just wondering if we have any information about what those materials are going to be, and if we haven't, which I suspect we haven't, how it's going to come back to committee and how we can approve them. And the second one was about landscape buffers. Again, I know this is an outline, but just very keen really that we put as much landscaping there as we can, and if we could give us some idea of what they have in mind or what you have in mind, that would be helpful.
I'd ask our officer.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Obviously, as Mr. Nadin mentioned, the only matter that's for approval is the access. So a further application will need to come. It will need to be submitted to the planning department and come before members of the planning committee, which will detail with the external appearance of the building and further landscaping. It's at that point where we would get full and precise details of the materials. Now, we haven't included a condition on the outline because we as officers don't feel it's necessary, but members could request that specific materials could be submitted as part of the reserved matters application. But because we don't know the final design of the building, officers think that that is not necessary at this stage. Obviously, if an application was submitted for the appearance, with materials listed, we could request at that point materials to be submitted prior to the planning committee. That would obviously be in the applicant's interest, because that would give clarity to members before they make a decision.
Thanks, Mr. Bromley. I think the important thing here is that we make our decision on the matters arising here. The most important thing I think here for us is to be clear in our own minds about the access. A lot of residents have talked about Loomer Road. This application makes it very clear, I think, that there is only access to this site from Pithead Close, and that I think is the important point.
Chair, sorry.
Councillor Proctor.
Yeah, Chair, I think the fact that we've established already that it's via Pithead Close and that there is no vehicular access via Loomer Road fits with what the residents in the area want. And the pedestrian access that leads from Loomer Road is equally what residents are looking for. So certainly from the point of view of access, I think that where we are today is where we need to be, and I would be happy to recommend that we move forward with this application on that basis.
Councillor Northcott and Councillor, and then Councillor Williams, I think, wants to speak.
Good evening, Chair. Glad you could make it. Thank you very much. Firstly, I want to say I congratulate the applicants for working with the borough in terms of how we've progressed this far, and to find out and flush out the reasons behind any objections at the local level. It's to be applauded that they've engaged on this basis and sought the views of the borough, particularly in terms of the Pithead Close method onto the site. I would like to pick up, however, on the supplementary agenda item that the applicant's got concerns with the level of electrical vehicle charging provision at 20%, and thinks that is excessive. I think, though, in reality, that we will be looking in the future for more than a 20%. So I think this is a more reasonable compromise, and I wouldn't wish to see that reduced to 10%. Bearing in mind we're supposed to be going over to more eco-friendly systems of transport in the future. So I would like to make sure that that's retained in the conditions, and we don't budge on that one. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and it's sad to see Councillor Northcott's backdrop isn't as luxurious as it was at the last meeting. Was he in San Francisco? Was he there? Was he smiling at that? Well done, Paul. Don't mind me there, Chair. Yeah, I have no problem with this planning application. It was just my concerns. I brought it up before. As the back end where the footpath comes along, and behind there is a brook culvert. It's full of rubbish, tyres, and all the rest of it. And I'm hoping that the applicant will be cleaning that area up, and even though it's a footpath going between industrial buildings, but at least to be as pleasant as possible for the users. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Well, the applicant's agent is here, and I think, yes, that will be a gesture of neighbourliness to do that, and I'm sure that can be taken on board.
Thank you.
Do we have any further comments to make about this application? Councillor Reddish?
No, I mean, I'm happy to move it. I mean, as I say, if the next application is going to talk about materials and landscaping, I'm quite willing to put that on hold until that comes.
Yeah, I think our officers assured us that's the case. I think it is probably sensible, given that this is an outline, so we don't actually, I mean, hard to talk about landscaping when we don't know the buildings, so to speak.
Okay.
Although I do agree that there is a big opportunity here, I think, to perhaps make sure that we don't have another big white building which is looked down on from above. Personally, I think recessive colours would make sense, because this will be viewed mainly from the country park. But that, I think, is a debate for another day. So I think we've had it.
As long as we don't lose sight of it, that's fine.
So I think we've had it proposed by Councillor Proctor, seconded by Councillor Reddish, that we accept the recommendations that are in front of us. Could I see those in favour, either by waving at the screen or using the raised hand thing? So I think that is a unanimous decision in favour.
Sorry, Chair, can I just make clear that it's the recommendation as in the second supplementary that was published today? Yeah.
I've assumed councillors have read their papers, but
Yes.
those on the supplementary.
Yeah, okay.
Let us then progress to the next item on our agenda, which is, I think, the minor development at KEELE. And again, I'll just ask our officer if there's any additional information to be had.
No, there's no updates on that one. Yes, it's as per the published agenda. The recommendation remains set out there.
Okay. So again, now I invite comment from members. I think Councillor Jones is perfectly at liberty to comment if he wishes to do so. He's no financial interest in this matter at all.
I don't think we have any choice. I think it would be sensible for us to permit this extension of time. So I'm quite happy to move the recommendation.
I'm happy to second it from the chair. Again, given our current circumstances, I think it would be churlish to deny the extension. I know this site very well. Councillor Jones knows this site very well. I think he would agree with me that it makes no visual intrusion whatsoever.
I agree with Councillor Reddish. I think we should move this forward.
So again, perhaps we should, last time, I've forgotten, last time we did this by asking councillors to speak for their vote. Perhaps we should do that since this is being recorded. So let's do it one by one this time. So, Councillor Proctor, are you in favour or against?
In favour.
Councillor Williams?
In favour.
Councillor Reddish?
In favour.
Councillor Jones?
In favour.
Councillor Maxfield?
In favour.
Councillor Northcott?
In favour.
Councillor Moffat?
In favour.
I think that's everyone. Please say if I've not called your name, but that appears to me to be unanimous. So that recommendation goes forward. That brings us to item 6 of our agenda, which, as you can see, is a consultation rather than a decision about a piece of road works Cheshire East who are concerned. Again, I'm just asking our officer, have we got any further information other than that which is printed?
No further information. Thank you.
I open the item for comments.
Well, Chair, this is probably the most needed road improvement I can think of in North Staffordshire. This piece of single carriageway has needed putting right for at least 15 years and is a bottleneck leading to the M6 from Crewe. It prevents free travel, and quite frankly, the sooner it's done from my point of view, the better. I think that it's important that this goes ahead.
Again, Councillor, I would agree. I'm speaking as a non-driver, in fact, but I would still agree with you that this seems to me a very necessary piece of work. None of it now, I think our officers can confirm, actually lies within the boundaries of the borough. It's entirely within in Cheshire East purview. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Mr. Chairman.
Councillor?
Hello? Are you addressing me, Mr. Councillor?
Yeah, I thought I heard you wish to speak, Councillor. Maybe I'm wrong in saying that.
Yeah, no, you're right in that. It was just like the officer comment on the public footpath that goes across that road. I think somebody was fatality. No, sorry, it was farther up. But I don't know whether there's public right of way at the cross there. As the paperwork from the Cheshire East included that any footways across that dual carriageway, or single track as it is now. If anything, it wants diverting if there's one, because it's a very, very dangerous road. And if you can remember going back, that this chap was killed farther up near the A34 roundabout at the public right of way, running across the dual carriageway then was fatality there. So I'm just wondering if the officers could include that in any submission to Cheshire East.
I'm sure that can be done, Councillor. Yes, obviously, if there is a public right of way there, the interests of pedestrians need protecting. So we can certainly put that into our comments going to Cheshire East.
Thank you.
Yes, I've made a note of that. Thank you.
Any further comments from members? Then let's go through the same drill again. So if you're content with the recommendations, with the addition of the comments from Councillor Williams about pedestrians and pedestrian rights of ways, I'll just ask you if you're in favour or against that. So Councillor Proctor.
I'm in favour.
Councillor Williams.
In favour.
Councillor Reddish. Councillor Reddish, can you hear me?
In favour.
Councillor Jones.
In favour.
Councillor Maxfield.
Favour.
Councillor Northcott.
In favour.
Councillor Moffat. Who's muted herself. Hang on. Let's see if we can.
Can you hear me now?
I can now, Councillor,
Yeah.
yes.
I am in favour.
Okay, thank you very much. So once again, I think that's a unanimous approval of the recommendation with that addition that's been given by Councillor Williams. Let's then progress to item 7 of our agenda, which is the holding item on BOGGS cottages, just to ask our officers if anything has emerged since the report.
No, we've not yet received any information as to when the hearing might be held in respect of this appeal. The Planning Inspectorate have been filing digital hearings this month and next month, so it's dependent on the success of those hearings. We may soon get a date, but as yet we haven't heard anything further from the Inspectorate.
Okay, so what I would suggest, colleagues, is that we retain this as we have done on not every meeting, but on every other meeting, and maybe we could ask that in the meantime the council does send a letter to the Planning Inspectorate asking if a date has been arranged. Does that seem a sensible way of proceeding?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So,
Chair, I'm in full agreement with your suggestion, and I appreciate all the efforts of the planning department to resolve this matter. Sadly, and it's not the Borough Council's fault, things like this tend to dilute public confidence in the Borough Council's enforcement in planning and indeed in other areas. And I'm sorry, but we really do have to have this very high on our agenda, because people are really starting to doubt the effectiveness of our enforcement. Without going into the history of all this one, we have so many things going on in this borough where enforcement seems to be lacking, that we really have to keep on top of all these. That's all I need to say.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I think, if we are seen to do something, in other words, actively to ask for a date for the inquiry rather than just wait for the Planning Inspectorate to tell us, that at least shows that the council is interested in this problem. And I think, I can give you some assurance that the planning department is working on enforcement. I think as I speak almost, to produce a document in this regard. Councillor Williams, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, I agree with everything Councillor Proctor has said, but I think taking it a bit further, I think it goes beyond any authority. or any authorities in this country to look into the details of what's been happening throughout the country. And it's illegal, it's big business, legal businesses that are creating this problem throughout the country. And we don't seem to be, whether it's through the MP or whatever, we don't seem to be taking any notice. Residents are concerned about it. And it seems it went quiet. We were going to have a review a few years ago about in the dumping. That seems to have died a death. Beyond this council, I mean, Mr. Chairman, it's about the parliamentary stuff that is. It's beyond us, as I've said. I don't want to repeat myself, but we need to push the MPs along here on this. A lot of things are going on at this moment in time, and obviously it's slow on the agenda. But I think we must push it farther up the agenda to find what's happening now nationally. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further comments on this item? As I say, what my view is that we should ask our officers to write to the Planning Inspectorate to see if there is a date fixed, or inquire when that date is. Perhaps will be a better way of doing it. And that we retain this item as a watching brief, so it will come back to us not at the next meeting, but at the meeting after that.
I agree. I agree with that, Chair.
You happy with that, Councillor Jones, as ward member? Yeah, yes. Excellent. So let's then, having recorded that, let's move on to the next item, which again is one of these holding items, which is the land at DODDLESPOOL. And again, I'll just ask our officer if we've got anything further to report on this.
Nick is reporting on this, but you're muted.
Apologies. Sorry, Chair. In terms of Doddlespool, there's nothing further to report.
Could I ask if we have actually made a meeting, have we made a visit out to this part of the world recently?
We have, yes. The enforcement officer was in the area for about a week doing surveillance on a number of sites in, as I say, in that area. He's observed nothing untoward at Doddlespool or any other sites which have had similar allegations. So we are monitoring it. I speak to the Environment Agency quite regularly. So we are trying to monitor it as much as we can. Unfortunately, the other organisations aren't carrying out site visits. So our enforcement officer is the only man on the ground.
Yeah.
Right.
Mr. Chairman,
Councillor Williams.
I do apologise. I was on about Doctor when I was talking about bugs and bugs. Or a little bit of involvement in that, but mainly it's a Doddlespool site that creates a lot the same as throughout the country. So that my comments really were made about Doddlespool. Thank you.
So again, I think it's a matter of regret that other councils aren't as active as we are. Maybe again, what I would suggest is that we keep this on again as a watching brief, so it comes round a couple of cycles, and maybe in the meantime we could ask, in fact, or have a letter sent to those partner authorities, urging them to take this matter seriously and to monitor it as we have been doing.
Yeah, Chair.
Members be content with that as a form of action?
Yeah, I support that, Chair.
It's quite happy with that.
Yeah.
So let's do that then and progress to item 9, which is once again one of these sorts of reports. I think I'm right in saying that there's probably no further information on this one either.
Well, I have received an email from the developer. Unfortunately, they're advising that most of their office staff are furloughed, so they haven't got anyone who could undertake a site visit to progress this matter at this point in time. But they will look at resolving the issue as soon as they can. So I will keep chasing the developer when there's any changes in the guidance that we're receiving from the government as to how we work, because that may result in changes in how they work. So at the moment, that's as much as I can advise.
Thanks, Mrs. Moulton. I think there, again, what I would suggest, colleagues, is that it's understandable in the current circumstances why that's come to pass. I would suggest we once again retain this as an agenda item for every other cycle, so that it the fact that nothing's happening now doesn't mean that nothing will happen in the future. I think we should keep it on the radar, and therefore we should keep it on the agenda like that. Again, would members be in agreement with that as a strategy?
Yeah, I support that, Chair.
Then let's go to item 10 with verbal report from Sean on this, on validation check charges.
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Chairman. This is a service that we're bringing in to help applicants in the development process. It deals with the validation stage of the planning process, which is where an application comes in and actually gets checked out and is found to be either valid or invalid. And if it is valid, it goes off to be consulted with neighbours and everybody and goes off towards a decision. Invalid applications are those which fail to have some key documents generally with them. The national requirements require forms, fees, plans to be submitted and certificates to be attached as well. And we also operate here in Newcastle a local validation checklist. So we require certain drawings, technical surveys like flood and highway reports, all to be part and parcel of the application on day one. It does set a bar for developers to actually put a lot of information up front, but it does enable us to go out to the public on day one with the application and tell them what's really happening, how they might be affected, make sure our consultees can get their informed decisions out quickly to us, rather than the old approach of having to sort of go back to the applicants and ask for a new highway study. Can we have extra information here, there and everywhere? So because of the high standards, there are applicants who go out there and actually don't hit the mark on first try, and they have to go back, get the information and come back again before they can get a valid application. For some people, that's not a problem if they're doing a sort of simple project or they're not bothered about the time, but we do have a number of applicants who are very time conscious, and they will be trying to get valid applications in on key dates. For example, 31st of December is a classic one when people have to meet contractual deadlines and get their applications with us. The validation checking process allows them to come to us earlier in the process, double check what information they need, make sure they've got all the required documents in hand before they submit. So when they put the documents in, they know with confidence that it should go through the process and they will get that all important start date as quickly as they can, without the embarrassment of having to go back to clients or other people and explain they didn't submit all the necessary information. So it is akin to the passport checking service. That's one of the sort of comparable services out there. Before you send all your papers and your birth certificates, you can check what you need beforehand. So we're operating the service at two primary levels. One is for those major applicants and for those people who are doing the large housing schemes, 10 and above, and the big industrial schemes. And for those people, we do charge £100 for the service. For other applicants, of smaller scale, it's just £50. But for most people who are actually in private residences and just doing their own domestic amendments, we actually don't charge for those people. So that's an informal service we do for them. But it does really help those people at the sort of commercial end of the spectrum to know that they can go to work on a timeline and deliver their applications when they expect to. So that's a new fee structures in there as part of this new service to help give certainty in the planning process.
Thank you very much indeed. That seems to me an eminently sensible approach. I'm heartened to see that although those with clearly playing with large sums of money have a relatively small fee to pay, that householders can have this service with no charge. That scaling of the charging seems to me also a good idea. This is just a report to keep us up to date. I invite comment though from members on if they've got any further points they wish to make about the ideas.
No.
No, I'm quite happy with that.
looks like people are content. If our members are content with that, we can progress, I think, to our next item, which is the site visit, if they happen, dates for the coming 2021 council year. There they sit. Again, I suppose the questions we should ask ourselves are, not only are those dates appropriate, do those times seem good ones?
So traditionally what we've agreed in the past, doesn't it? And I'm not aware of it.
No, it's quite right, Councillor. It's effectively rolling over our practice from previous years.
Yeah.
So unless anyone thinks that, you know, that there is a price to pay for previous years, which, you know, yeah, we can always learn and do things better. Are we happy with that as it sits? At one level, of course, it's not a tablet of stone. If we find that Councillor Williams is sharing his screen for me for some reason. No, he's not anymore. I think we should just stick with this, and if we have to make amendments in emergencies, we can do so. But are members content with that? As I say, it is in fact a rolling over of our past practice.
Yeah.
I'm content with that, Chair.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fine.
In favour, Chair.
So in that case, let's progress to item 12, which is a tree preservation order.
Move it, Chair.
I don't know if again, members content with that?
Content.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, quite content.
Again, I see no dissent, so I think we can say that that recommendation goes forward. And that brings us to our final item this evening, which is urgent business, as defined by the relevant section of the relevant Act. I know of none. I look to our officers to hopefully be confirmed that there is none.
There is no items.
Thank you, Mrs. Moulton. That therefore brings our meeting to a close. It's been short, which is perhaps sad in one respect, but good in another respect. So again, I can't have a very pleasant evening.